night, man. It is great to see you all. Week went by pretty quick though. Uh, I can't complain. So it's great to be here Thursday night, with you guys. And God willing, the rest of the week, you know, gets better. I know some of the guys are, going through stuff, so we'll keep them in prayer as always. And David and his men reached Zilgag, and on the third day, now the Amalekites had raided Negev and Zilgag, and they attacked Zilgag and burned it, and had taken captive the women and everyone else in it, both young and old. And they killed none of them, but carried them off as they went on their way. And when David and his men had reached Zilgag, they found it destroyed by fire, and their wives, sons, and daughters taken captive. So David and his men wept aloud until they had no strength left to weep. David's two wives had been captured by Enoham of Jezreel and Abigail, the widow of Nabal of Carmel. And David was greatly distressed because of the men were talking of stoning him. Each one was bitter in spirit because of his sons and daughters. But David found strength in the Lord his God. Then David said to Abiathar, the priest of the son of Amalekite, it says, bring me the ephod. Abiathar brought it to him. And David inquired of the Lord, shall I pursue this raiding party? Will I overtake them? Pursue them, he answered. You will certainly overtake them and succeed in the rescue.
Mm.
All right, guys. Here we see, tonight it's called the cost of letting our guard down. And here we see David in the same situation. David was off, in the wilderness for 3 days with his men. They were out, plundering and raiding and doing everything. But when they came back, the Amalekites, sure enough, had taken their wives, their sons, and their daughters, all their cattle, all their wealth, had pretty much stripped them to nothing. So when this army of men gets back, they found this disaster. I mean, I can only imagine the scene. It's like one of those war movies when everything is just like quiet, and all you just hear is, like dogs barking in the background and stuff like that, and everything's lit up on fire and whatnot. It must have been just a destruction. Imagine going back to your house, after you're away for 3 days and finding, your family's gone and your entire house just burned down and everything alike. So David finds himself in this situation and his men, and so they're weeping. And the Bible says that they wept so much that they had no tears left. So I mean, these are battle-hardened men, and they're just crying, gushing their eyes out. And I mean, they were torn to shreds, and David is torn to shreds. And at this point, the men, are plotting to go ahead and stone David to kill him, because of what had occurred. Because David had, if you read the chapters prior, there was no reason for David to leave the entire city, the entire encampment without any protection. I mean, they basically, every man in that city got up and left behind the women, children, and that was it, just without any protection whatsoever. And so David gets back, finds the situation, and he's destroyed. His wives have been taken, both his wives, probably David's wives weren't Cuban, because if not, he just said, hey, man, you did me a favor. Okay. But hey, don't say that out loud too much. But here we see David weeping and mourning for what had just happened, but that is the cost of letting your guard down. David let his guard down, and what happened, his entire family was taken. And not only his family, the family of his friends and his brothers and those that encircled around him, the men that fought with him, and there was weeping. But then David realized what had happened. And what did David do after he mourned, after he wept, after there was nothing left? David didn't just go and pursue these men. He didn't take quick revenge and say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and, take care of this matter and take it in my own hands. The first thing he did, he called for the priest, and he called for the priest to bring the ephod. And at that point, he sought the face of the Lord, and he said, God, what should I do? And God said, in other words, he says, go get him and bring back your family. Take back what the enemy has taken from you at this point. So David did that, and they went back, and if you continue reading throughout the chapter, you'll see that they not only got back what they came for their families, but they also took more. God even blessed them even more in that raid, what they did. Now you see, you can say, well, man, God was pretty rough on David because David disobeyed by leaving, the women and children by themselves, by having the Amalekites come and take their family. But notice this was a tribe, of just wild men that would normally have killed everybody in their path. But they spared the entire, the families of these men. So God showed mercy on David, even though he had committed a grave sin. God still was merciful with David to spare their families, because easily all these people could have just been wiped out from one shot when they came into the village, but they didn't. They did something very unprecedented. They took them with them. They took them as slaves with them, even though it was for a brief time, but they took them alive and they took them captive, which is something the Amalekites were not known for. They were known just for killing people and just taking whatever they could that was of value. But again, we look at this as the cost of letting our guard down. And David's story, I think, plays out in our generation, in our lives as men, because we let our guard down all the time. And then we suffer the same consequences. No, not in the sense that somebody's going to come and just physically take your family. Because I don't think none of us would leave our families by themselves for 3-4 days, knowing that an invading army can come and take them at any time. But in a spiritual sense, we let our guard down. When we, view something on the internet that we shouldn't be looking, we're letting our guard down. When we cheat at a business deal, or, hey, you know what, I can get away with this, I'll go ahead and do it. We're letting our guard down. In so many aspects, when we're not seeking God on a daily basis, we're letting our guard down. When we're not praying, we're letting our guard down. And when we let our guard down, it is our family that gets taken captive. Because you see, David went off for 3 days in the wilderness. He had no business going off there. He should have just stayed in the camp and he could just stay with his family. And this story, in First Kings, would have probably never developed. Maybe it would have just been a scuffle between the Amalekites and David, and it would have ended up with David destroying them right on point. Or maybe they wouldn't even taken their chances against David's camp at Zilgag at that moment. But they did it because why? Because the men were not present. So notice the importance of a man being present, not only physically, but spiritually. You need to be present in your home. And that's what the word is trying to tell us. That's what this story, how that, translates to us today. We need to be physically, not only physically, there for protection, but in the spiritual sense too. Because when we let our guard down in the spiritual sense, our family gets taken captive. The thing is, we try to, but most men will tell you, I got to work. So we spend these long hours at work. So we're not home. We're in the wilderness of work, and we're continuously, working because I'm providing for my family. And granted, the Bible says, with the sweat of your brow, you will earn your daily bread. And I'll give you that. But it doesn't say, hey, I don't want the bread, I want the bakery. And that's where we mess up. Because we're not satisfied with a piece of bread. We want the entire bakery to go along with it. We want to be the owner of the bakery. We want to have warehouses of bread. So we keep sweating and we keep working at it. And then we tend to leave our families behind, and we sacrifice them at the altar of working, or even our simple pleasures of life. I remember, way back when, in earlys and the 70s and the 80s, dad would come home from work and you wouldn't bother him. You just left him alone. You just, hey, don't bother your father. He's tired. He just came back home from work. Don't talk to him right now. And after a couple of hours, the old man will start to engage with people again, and, things got back to normal again, So in those periods, your family's still there. The wife is still there. Your children are still there. So we can't disengage from our families because of work, or because we need that quiet time where, hey, I'm mentally just, overtaken with work and so many things that, I just, I got to retreat to my man cave, or I need to retreat, I need to go fishing for a week, or I need that hunting trip for a week. I need to get away from everything. Well, that's not what God called you to do. God called you to be involved in our family. We can't let our guard down. We are the spiritual protectors of our home. If the enemy attacks you spiritually and they get past you, your family is going to be devoured. It's simple as that. You are the defense of that home, of your home. You are the wall that's protecting them. So if you're not there physically or spiritually, the enemy is going to come in. So the Amalekites waited for David to leave. And while David was just off plundering and just going about for 3 days, they swooped in there with no resistance. And that's what happens to a lot of homes today. The enemy comes in with zero resistance. The thing is, if the roof is leaking, then hey, we'll get up on the roof, we'll go to Home Depot, we'll take care of it. If the oven's not working, we'll figure it out. If the car needs an oil change, we'll take it to a mechanic, we'll do it ourselves. We'll handle our business. But then when it comes to, hey, your son's not, he's doing things he shouldn't be doing, or he's locking himself in his room now, or he's disengaging from dinner conversation, or his grades are failing at, he's getting failing grades at school, or skipping school, or hanging out with the wrong guys. Then we just tell our wives, hey, just take care of it. I can't deal with that right now. I got work, I got this, I got that. So just take care of it. If our children are not spiritually involved with the Word of God, or reading the Bible, or just being in touch with God in the relationship, we say, well, hey, just take them to youth night on Friday night or Wednesday night, or just make sure they go to Sunday school, or make sure they pay attention in church. And we dump it on our wives, and we keep dumping down, we keep disengaging, and we keep letting our guard down. And then it's not a problem. It's like, oh, your son doesn't want to talk anymore. Well, hey, you get that phone call 3 o'clock in the morning. Mr. So-and-so, your son's in jail right now. And then you look back and you're like, oh, what happened? I did everything I could. I worked, 40, 50 hours a week. I'm a good father. I'm a good husband. I don't beat my wife. I don't drink too much at the house. I try to do everything right. So what's going on? And the thing is that we let our guard down. We let a spiritual guard down. Just as David left a physical guard by leaving his family unattended, we are living a spiritual one. And that's where the enemy is swooping in. Don't wait till your daughter starts painting her fingernails black, and then she's wearing all black clothes and leaving her hair long and listening to Marilyn Manson, and you don't know what's going on. Then all of a sudden it just blows up, and you're like, whoa. Stop it at the beginning. Stop it at the beginning by praying, by being involved in your home, being involved with your family, being involved with your children. Don't outsource your parental responsibilities, your duty as a husband. Don't outsource your security. Now, we tend to focus on physical security, alarm systems, thick glass, hurricane-proof glass, whatever, locks, security cameras, you name it. But where is the spiritual alarm system in our home? Do we even have one? Chances are we don't, because look around, the homes of so many men that you may know, or friends, or people from your church, and then look at their situations, look at their children, look at their marriages. And and then ask yourself, what went wrong? Well, the man left his guard down. And because of that, destruction came in. The Amalekites came in and destroyed him and ripped them off and just literally took them apart. David was fortunate enough to get his family back. A lot of men are fortunate to get their family back even after a divorce. A lot of couples remarry and relationships, regain strength again. A lot of families are destroyed, never to flourish again. Why? Because the Amalekites, of modern day life come in and pilferage your family. And you're off working, and you're off on your hunting trips, and you're off on the fishing trips, and you're off, here and there and everywhere, because you need that quiet time, you need that private time, you need to disconnect. And I'm not knocking it, but I'm just saying, you got to shore up your defenses at home. And you can't do that if you're not actively being at the forefront or at the head of your house, praying for your family, engaged in the lives of your children, of their spiritual lives, not just their schoolwork, but their spiritual lives at best. Because a lot of the times what we do is we tend to say, oh, my wife is taking care of that. Well, I don't know what's going on with schoolwork. My wife's going to take care of that. So it's where are we as fathers? We need to be engaged. We need to be there. We need to make sure that if there's a crack in our defense system, then we need to address it immediately. We need to be the ones at the forefront if there's a situation, if they're lacking something, if they're lacking spiritual maturity, if they're lacking wisdom, we need to be there to provide it. But when we let our guard down, when we just take our focus off the threat level that's coming in from an enemy, he's going to jump on it real quick and he sees it. And that's what a lot of men are doing today. We're disengaging from our families. You know, a lot of men today, we love the whole man cave thing. And, I just separate myself from the entire world, just for a few hours, or this is my space. Don't interrupt it, or this is my trip, or this is my time. There is no such thing as mine. There isn't. It just doesn't fall in the agenda of God. You were given a family, so you tend to it. 24/7, 365, you're at it. There's no me time. There's no, hey, you know what? Time out. I'm going to step out and then I'll come back in when I'm ready. No, you've got to be ready. You've got to be prepared to fight day in and day out, no matter what the circumstances are. This Sunday, there's going to be thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of men all over this great country disengaged from their families because they're going to watch two teams of grown men go at it and play a football game. And for 6 hours, maybe, or even longer, because some will jump in front of that television from the minute the pregame show is on at 10, 11 o'clock in the morning and sit there all the way to 8, 9 o'clock at night, just to watch every single moment. And they'll dedicate on Sunday, they'll dedicate a good 8, 9 hours maybe for the diehard fans to watch a game. They may not even like the teams. They may not even root for them, but they'll give that team 9 hours. For true fans, will give 9 hours, totally engaged for a 60-minute game that turns out it usually lasts 3 to 4 hours. But they will not invest 1 hour in the lives of their children in the next month after that. But yet they'll give the NFL on Sunday, they'll give them every moment of their waking hour in front of that television set because it's the big game. It's the Super Bowl. Oh, it's tradition or this or that. So you're telling me it's more important than your children. You're telling me it's more important than your marriage. You're telling me it's more important than your wife. You're telling me it's more important than God. That's what you're telling me. Then I won't accept it. But hey, that's your reality. That's okay. But God is not buying that argument, because you see, there's going to come a time when we let our guard down and the Amalekites come in and slowly our house is eroding and everything is collapsing around us. And we're going to say, well, what happened? Well, it's a simple question and it's a simple answer. The same thing that happened to David. We were not there to stop it. We were not present physically or spiritually to stop it. Don't wait till your son or daughter comes home and the problem has blown up to try to address it. Address it when you see the small turning into a very larger problem. But if we're not there to notice it because we're too busy off at work, or we're too busy off on our trips, or we're too busy in our private time in our home and we don't want to be bothered with it, then the Amalekites are just going to keep flooding in. And they're going to keep destroying and they're going to keep pillaging. And if you ask so many men that are divorced, that have lost their children through divorce, or have lost their children through alcohol abuse, through drugs, or suicide, or anything like that, they'd give anything to give them back. They'd give anything to spend one more day with them. But it's too late at that point because we've lost them. See, David wept because he thought he had lost his family forever. Those men with David wept because they had lost everything. But then David sought the Lord. And God said, go get him. God said, go get him. I'm giving you another shot at this. I'm giving you a chance to make a U-turn and turn things around. God was so merciful that he gave David the opportunity to turn it around, to take his family back. And David, I promise you, never through the Bible did that ever happen again. Because David knew better. There were no more 3 days in the wilderness running around with the boys privileging. It was at home with his family, making sure that the needs of the home were addressed and the security and the protection of his home were addressed above all. Nothing else mattered to David after that point in 1 Kings 30. But David had to learn a hard lesson. It was taken from him, even though for a short time, but it was taken from him, and he felt that pain. As I read through those verses, and I honestly, I felt for those men when it said that they wept and they had no more tears to weep. That's a strong statement because these men were gunslingers. These guys were just hardcore warriors. These guys didn't shed tears for nothing, but they saw their homes destroyed. They saw their families gone, taken. How many men weep and cry over their children who are or prostitutes or drug addicts or just lost in this world? How many men go to bed every day weeping and crying because of a divorce and they can't see their children because their ex-wives won't allow it? I know men in those situations. You know men in those situations. How difficult it is, the pain, the suffering it is. But why did it come to that? Because those men let their guard down. And the enemy sought room to come in and destroy and to take what it was that's not his. So when we let our guard down, gentlemen, in our personal lives, in our spiritual lives, in our work lives, in any aspect that we walk upon this earth, the enemy is going to swoop in. No questions asked. He's going to show no mercy upon you, your home, or your family. Like the Amalekites, he's just going to walk in there and take it and take everything that is precious to you. And may God be merciful upon us in that moment for us to seek God and for him to say, go, chase it, because you're going to get it back and then some. Some men don't have that opportunity. Some men have lost and lost for the good. Our question is tonight, have we let our guard down? Have we let our guard down? Look, we need to evaluate our lives. We need to evaluate our homes. You say, what area of my life have I let my guard down that the enemy's coming to swoop in? Forget that he's going to attack you and destroy you, because that is without a doubt, he will destroy you. But he's going to destroy what's most precious to you. And that's the woman you love and the children you love, because that's what he's about. He's about destroying what's around you. And when you're out of the picture, it is 5 times easier to attack the rest of the family. No lion, the lioness and the cubs are fair game. Plain and simple. If the lion is taken out, the rest for a pack of hyenas, it's no big deal. The toughest part is getting past the male lion or the bride. But once they do that, it's all downhill from there. And you may think, well, what I'm doing, where that online, viewing, or that flirtatious relationship at work, or cutting corners here and there, or cheating out, here and there, in my personal business, you might think it's no big deal. But little by little, the enemy's chipping away and you're letting your guard down. And before you know it, you got your head down and he walked right over you because you're no good. Because you can't go before the throne room of God at that point because you're so ashamed to do it. And so what do? You start to retreat. And he starts whispering in your ear, you can't get this back. Oh, you're done. I own you. There's no hope for you. And then depression starts to seep in and your hope starts to diminish and your day starts turning into night. And before you know it, your joy is mourning and you are simply weeping and weeping until you have no more tears to cry out. But if we have any hope, we turn to the living God and we say, shall I pursue them? And in his mercy, we can all pray that he responds, go and pursue and take back. Go and pursue and take back. Gentlemen, inventory yourself tonight. Where are the weak spots in your life tonight? where you're letting your guard down. Is it spiritual? Is it physical? Is it mental? Wherever it is, in any aspect of your life, look around you, look around your defenses, shore up what's weak. If you don't have a consistent prayer life, get to it. If you're not speaking to God on a regular basis, get to it. If you're not in the word, get in it. If there's problems in your home and you're not addressing it, no matter how minor they are, start addressing it. Start putting out those small fires today so they don't become raging infernos tomorrow. And save yourself the heartache of weeping until you've got no more tears to weep. What David experienced was horrific. What those men experienced was horrific. What men today are experiencing are the same things. We don't call them Amalekites anymore. We call them addictions. We call them destructions. We call them, distractions. But you're there. There are Amalekites of 2021. And they're just waiting and waiting, and they don't grow tired until they can come in and destroy you. And then the next step is to destroy your family. So, guys, tonight, I implore you, keep your guard up. Stay focused. Get engaged. Get engaged in the word. Get engaged with God. Get engaged with your family, with your children. Don't let the distractions of this world, don't let the pleasures of this world, don't let the things of this world overtake you. Because if they do, the cost of letting your guard down is great. And that is a check that you cannot cover. I guarantee that. Guys, that's all I got, man.